doing well, and I'm curtsying right now, but you can't quite see it because it's only audio.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tribunal of the Greeter, where we talk about all things Power Rangers, including the actors that play them. My name is Brandon.
I am Lena.
I'm Will.
And today, we have a very exciting episode coming to you today. We are joined by a very, very legendary person who was actually playing the younger version of a Ranger. Please give a warm welcome to young Rocky, Mike Olaskey. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. I hope there's a roarish applause in the background. I'm assuming there is.
Mike, let's just go ahead and get this interview popping. So,
sounds good.
When you first started everything, you were pretty young. Like, you were like a kid getting started with everything. How did you even get started with martial arts? Like, did that just come up, or how did that happen?
Well, when it comes to martial arts, kind of my standard answer is that I don't really have a memory where I didn't do martial arts. I grew up with a father who was a Green Beret in the military, and his boy was going to know how to fight. So, in fact, I mean, some of my earliest childhood memories are of me doing martial arts in places. So whenever somebody asks that, I don't really have a good or compelling answer, except for that I always did. The standard retort is that I've been kicking since I can walk. My dad says that he got me started in Tang Sudo at about 2 or 3 years old. And
wow.
Basically I've been doing it ever since since then.
Wow. And how many martial arts do you know? Because I see you do like a lot of stuff with like weapons and stuff like that. How many actually standard martial arts do you know?
Well, I'm competent in teaching over 17 different styles of martial arts. I have instructorships in about 7 of those last time I counted. As far as like martial arts that I am able to do, I would say the list is pretty endless. One of the great things about having such a background in so many different styles of martial arts is that you tend to adapt to new martial arts styles pretty quickly. Just like if you learn one language that is Latin-based, you can kind of start to communicate in different languages. Martial arts tends to be very much the same thing because, there's only a certain many ways that you can punch somebody in the face.
Right. Got you. All right. So when you've been learning, you've pretty much been learning martial arts all this time. How did the acting thing come about?
Acting was sort of a product of martial arts. When I was 6 years old, I was winning Japanese jiu-jitsu tournaments. At about 6 years old, I was competing in Japanese throwing tournaments with people who were about 12 to 13 because I was too young for an actual age bracket. So I was competing with kids that were about twice my age and basically winning against them. I've won at about that age, between that age and about 8 to 9 years old, I had won about 6 world titles in Japanese throwing martial arts. In the early 90s, when you start winning competitions that much and as regularly as I was competing and winning, people start coming up to you and they start like saying, hey, maybe you should get into movies, right? Because we all remember the early 90s. They were kind of like the pinnacle of martial arts movies, action films, Van Damme, Schwarzenegger, all that stuff. So you didn't really need a ton of acting credentials to get into it as long as you were a stellar martial artist, which, I worked hard and I happened to be. So I met a few people, hooked up with a manager, and they started sending me out for auditions, and I sort of had to learn on the fly there. I had a lot of auditions for, mainly commercials and stuff earlier on. But if you look at the bulk of my resume, even now as an adult, the majority of the stuff that I've worked on that I get is they're all martial arts related in some way. So I don't know what that says about my acting acumen. I like to think that I'm well versed in the art, but I tend to score most of the roles that are martial arts related, and that's kind of how Power Rangers came along.
Got it. Okay. Okay, well that actually makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So now I know this was a long time ago and you were a kid and everything, but do you remember your actual audition process for Power Rangers?
Yeah, the audition for Power Rangers was very similar to how it is now. They pretty much do a bulk cattle call for basically all hands on deck. Whoever wants to audition can audition, whether they have a manager or an agent or not. They can self-submit. I happened to have, I think, just a manager at the time, and she submitted me. And originally the part called for a lot more action. They were very much looking for very competent, very screen-worthy martial arts. And that was at the time when, it's just, they were auditioning still within the first season. And that was the time where, the early 90s parent scare of kids being violent in school because of Power Rangers came along. So even though I was casted for, this martial arts acumen that I brought to the table, unfortunately, they had to sort of pull back the reins a lot on what the kids can do based on the fact that mothers were getting really mad at older brothers hitting younger brothers or what have you.
Right. Got you. Wow. So basically what you're saying is like when it first all started, like you were initially supposed to do a lot more, but then it kind of just became, when you actually got to it and you were actually casted, they kind of like pulled back and just had you do a lot more like slapstick, humorous type, fun type of stuff as far as like the choreography and the fight choreography and everything?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the whole idea of the Power Rangers when they get shrunk down into little kids was that they were able to, that they kept all of their skills as an adult. So they originally planned for much more action heavy. Even we sort of bent a couple rules. The actor who played Bulk, Paul Schreier, I think that's how you say his name. He directed my episode of getting the Zeo crystal, and he really fought for me still going into the volcano and me pulling out the Zeo crystal. But originally that whole script was much more action heavy. I was supposed to be dangling over hot lava with like the rope burning from the bottom and all that stuff. It was supposed to be really cool, but unfortunately, Mothers Against Power Rangers or whatever that group was called, they kind of stormed the set and they put a pin in that. Even in our first appearance, that first time Rangers Back in Time in season 2. That whole fight scene with the putties was supposed to be like an elaborate, pretty awesome fight scene, and they had to pull the rings, and all we got to do was throw handballs at putties, which was kind of disappointing.
That's not cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of a bummer, especially for somebody like me who obviously trained a very long time in the martial arts, even at that point in my life. And we're talking, I'm probably about 11 years old at that point. And, my idols are Bruce Lee, and especially in the early 90s, you had Jackie Chan. And I definitely wanted to do all my own stunts because I wanted to be exactly like him. And, that didn't work out well. I got to throw my own handballs, but didn't really get to do any of the action fight scenes.
Oh, that sucks.
Dang, that
so
sucks.
Fun.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think it was a really good idea. It just wasn't the right time for it. That's why I always say, the Power Rangers turning into Young Rangers really set the stage for a future Young Ranger to come along. Everybody has their own opinion on how that actually went, but I think that it was a really action heavy production at first, but they had to pull it in.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like more than likely, with now knowing this, I think that probably if had it happened like years down the line, you probably would have been able to do it versus versus when it actually happened.
Yeah, but I also think that it has a lot to do with popularity as well. When I was on Power Rangers, it was the #1 television show for kids in the world. Like, it was just absolutely insane. But when the popularity starts dying down, people care about you less, and you're able to get away with a lot more. So, if Power Rangers was still at the height of its of its popularity, you know, maybe they would have run into some roadblocks during that turbo season as well. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah. I can see that. I can kind of see that actually. Okay, so after you won the role of young Rocky and everything, do you remember what your first day of set was like?
My first day of set was very confusing because I've been on set before. I had a few small roles. I had a few commercials, but commercials are very difficult or different than theatrical roles, like a long-term role on Power Rangers. I just remember personally, you know, I mean, I'm an 11-year-old in the command center of the nation's #1 television show. It is the biggest thing on television, and it's targeted at the age range that I actually am. So my main concern was not just to make a complete idiot of myself and break something by doing something stupid and playing with the command center buttons. They were very strict on where we can stand and what we can and can't touch. So I was just making sure that, you know, I was as professional as possible because there's all these adults with adult jobs, and I'm just, you know, an 11-year-old living the dream, playing make-believe on the set of Power Rangers.
Right. That's a very mature mindset to be in like that. I would have imagined you as a kid, it would have been like the opposite. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah, well, you know, when you have a father who was a Green Beret, as we talked about earlier, he can crack the whip pretty hard on you and make sure that you're toeing the line.
You got a point.
My dad was very supportive, although strict. One of the things that's important for a child actor to know is that, you know, even though it's a fun job, it's still a job. And the only reason why you're there is because you can behave yourself and you can do good work. And if you don't, then, you know, they're gonna kick you out, hire somebody else, and guess what? It's back to school, back to real school. And you know, when you say, would you want to be a red Power Ranger and do school on set, or do you want to actually go to a real school? You know, I think that's a very good motivator for behaving on set.
Right. So when you were on Power Rangers, how was it with you being in school and everything? Were you like homeschooled, or how did that work?
So when it comes to productions for child actors, there are very strict rules as to how long we can work and how long we have to be on school. So we can only be on set or work on set for a total of 6 hours. But we also have a mandatory 3 to 4 hours of private tutoring every day. So what they would do is they would basically just hire a teacher, a private tutor, and rather than going to school for like, you know, 5 hours a day or however long kids go to school nowadays, I've been out of it for a while. But instead of going to school for all that time, you get kind of like an intense one-on-one coach that's just there to kind of drill your academics into you. So, you know, we do go to school. We go to school a lot. And if you have good parents, they make sure that you're actually doing the schooling. A lot of the fault when it comes to child actors is that parents play it loosey-goosey with the rules, and, you know, they don't get all their childhood academics into play. And then, you know, they end up successful child actors, but they don't really end up successful adults, if you know what I mean.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. Because some people don't know continents. Apparently, some young actors, some young childhood actors. We're not gonna go there. So after you did that episode in season 2, the one where you returned back into little kids, and then they asked you to come back in season 3 for much longer with Alien Rangers. Were you shocked, or how did you feel about that when they asked you to come back for that?
You know, when you're living in the moment as a kid, as a child actor, shock is not really a word that best describes it. I think when I look back at it now as an adult, you can really realize in hindsight how lucky you are to have parts like that expand. But as a kid, you know, I'm auditioning a lot. I'm going to school. I'm doing all my stuff. And basically what just happened is my dad walked in one day and was like, hey, it looks like they rebooked you for Power Rangers for, you know, a full contractual season. So good for us. And I was like, yay. That was pretty much it. There wasn't a level of shock. It was just something that I especially had at that time. I had been used to being on set, whether it be features and movies or hundreds of television commercials. So for me at that age, it was just another booking. But now, you know, when you look back at it and you look back at the stuff that was important to people, you see how like Power Rangers is a force for good in so many people's lives. I can definitely look back now at the whole picture and see how just lucky I am to have been part of so many different people's childhoods. You know, I go to comic book cons a lot, and you'd be surprised at how many times people come up to me and they're like, hey, you know, your part in Power Rangers or Three Ninjas, it got me involved in martial arts. And, you know, I own a martial arts school today, or, you know, my kid's going to be a black belt one day. It's such a humbling experience. I'm so grateful of it, especially looking back at it now.
Wow. It's because it's strange because like I remember when like I first even saw you before. I think it was like I think you've already done a con or something like that before, but like you were still pretty new to it. And I remember seeing you, and I'm like, wait a minute. He looks so familiar, but I can't place where he's from because obviously I remember when you were a kid. Right. I'm just like, wait a minute, how does he look so familiar? And then like I looked up the name and I'm like, holy crap, that's young Rocky. Like, oh,
yeah,
wow.
It's a lot of fun. You know, it was a lot of fun for a lot of people to see their favorite Power Rangers as kids for the first time, and you know, still taking up the mantle and doing heroic things as opposed to just, you know, being teeny weenies running away from monsters.
Right. Are there any special memories that you remember at all from set? Like maybe being with the actual actors, or the adult versions of yourselves?
We got to meet the actors fairly infrequently, albeit briefly, mainly because we were playing the younger versions of them. There was no real need to have them on set a lot. Right. So like we worked with each other briefly for like a day or two, but for the most part, we didn't get the real luxury of hanging out with them and getting to know them. Not to say that they, you know, they probably wouldn't have wanted to hang out with a bunch of 11-year-olds anyways, right? I mean, we're talking 21-year-olds over here, playing 17-year-olds. But you know, I get to talk to them a lot now. I get to see them on cons now. I see them pretty frequently, and it's fun to kind of talk and chat about, you know, how little I was versus, you know, how big I am now. I would say some good memories are, I mean, just being in the command center, that first iconic command center that everybody knows, pretending to look up at a floating head when it was just like a blue tube. That was a pretty cool experience. Getting fitted for the original communicators, that was a cool one. I still have a couple of those original communicators from the set the prop guy let me keep. It's, by the way, if there are any kids listening right now, it does pay to be a cool kid and listen to the adults, especially if you're ever on set, because the cool kids get to keep the memorabilia from the movie sets, just so you know. So be cool. Oh, wow. Don't be a pill. There was a time where they closed. One of you lives in Los Angeles. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Brandon.
So Brandon was probably aware of the water park Raging Waters and how prolific it was in our childhood as far as water parks go. And it was basically the biggest water park in Los Angeles. Every summer it opened up. Every kid wanted to go there. Probably one of the cooler memories was that they closed down the entire park for just the kids to shoot a whole episode in. So for me, growing up in Los Angeles, that was like a big deal. And then afterwards, they turned down all the water slides, and it was basically just, you know, us 5 kids and a couple crew guys running around the park, not having to wait in any lines, just sliding down all the water slides. So it's a pretty unique memory. Depend on their wiles and their martial arts acumen and their smarts to get things done because they couldn't morph. And I think what really ended up happening in that defanging of the snake, so to speak, was that you got a fun, silly show, which is awesome. But you really could have had something special, I think, especially considering my martial arts talent as a kid, and the kid who played the White Ranger, Michael Gatto. He was a stellar martial artist as well, and I think we really could have done some cool stuff on that show if they let us.
And they completely you didn't actually film anything with the fights, right? It was always just like a funny scene.
Yeah, so I don't think that there would be any. There might be some secret footage out there of us doing stuff and trying stuff, but from if my memory recalls correctly, there were the actual like censors and the people on set telling the director what they could and couldn't do. They were like right there with clipboards and pencil skirts, just like scrutinizing everything that we did. And if they thought it was too violent or dangerous, they didn't even let us film it.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it would have been a lot of fun, but it is what it is, and I got what I got. Woe is me to be on the nation's #1 television show, be the envy of every kid, and to ask for more. But I think that if I could have changed anything in the past, it would have been that, just to go full tilt and let the young Rangers be young Rangers.
Would you come back if the opportunity presents itself?
I was in talks with some people for season 28.
Oh.
There's some non-disclosure agreements going on there about what I can and can't say. I would be interested in coming back if it were an interesting part, I would say. But I'm not too interested in coming back for just kind of like a bit part or a throw off piece or whatever. I love the franchise and it would be fun to come back. But if it was something just small or throwaway, I've got a family, I've got businesses that I've got to run. I really couldn't dedicate the time to, fly out to New Zealand or what have you and get it done. But if it were a cool part, and the character was awesome, I would definitely love to come back and bring that whole thing full circle.
That would be fun.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty dope. Now, I know you said that you have some NDAs. I know all about the whole NDA business. However, did they already tell you what it was? Can you answer that? Like, did they already tell you what the part was, or are y'all just in talks?
Well, we're in talks, but I mean, I don't know how much I can say. What I will say is this: that there are probably much more popular Power Rangers than me that they're likely to go with. If I can plant that seed out there, and you guys can do with whatever you want.
Okay.
Got you.
That's
Got
fair.
you. Yeah, because I honestly, when they announced that it was going to be dinosaurs again, I kind of already had a feeling they're probably going to bring some old Rangers back.
They could. You didn't hear that from me. I didn't say that. I'm just saying. That
Well, no, you didn't. You didn't.
Yeah, I'm just saying that there's more popular Rangers that they can choose to work with.
Well, this is fair.
Right.
So switching gear a little bit, I just wanted, what encouraged you to open your own gym?
I think that the idea of teaching and owning a martial arts gym is sort of the life cycle of a martial artist in general. So it wasn't really much more of a decision, but just as me as fulfilling a legacy of a lifelong martial artist and a lifelong martial artist before me. I started martial arts obviously really young. I had some major entertainment successes with martial arts throughout my younger years, from the ages of 6 years old to the ages of 20. I got into more applicable styles of martial arts, fighting styles of martial arts, mixed martial arts, and I became the warrior in that kind of mindset. And then there kind of comes a point in every martial artist's life where being a warrior anymore, your body's just not going to continue to work with you in that respect. And then at that point, you are the teacher of the warriors. And that's where I'm leading on to now. My whole plan for my life, a martial arts school, has been my retirement plan. I expect to be a 90-year-old old man with, a Fu Manchu sitting on a chair pointing my cane at people and telling them what to do. So it's more or less just fulfilling that kind of life circle of an athlete / martial artist. So we opened the Ranger Academy. We have a private academy in Burbank, California, which is mainly used to train small semi-private groups as well as celebrity privates and stuff like that. And we opened up the Ranger Academy here in Pleasant Grove, Utah, where we teach all different styles of martial arts to all comers, whether it be kickboxing, kids, weapons, grappling. I mean, we do it all. And I give my heart and soul every day to those kids and adults that come in, and I hope that they see it.
Oh wow, that actually leads into my next question. Like, what age range for your classes? Like, is there a cutoff, or you're just kind of like, we accept all?
Yeah, I recommend the kids program. Kids start from ages about 5 to about 15. Once people turn about 15 to 16, they're going to start to want to gravitate to more of a gym atmosphere as opposed to a martial arts atmosphere. There are two different types, especially nowadays, of martial arts programs. One's a very strict martial arts program with a lot of rigid rules and curriculum and belts and things like that. But then there's also a more gym atmosphere for the more MMA-oriented mind, as they're what most adults are into, because most adults don't like being told what to do by somebody. So my gym is basically earlier on in the day. It's that kind of like that Buddhist Mecca, Mr. Miyagi style teaching kids martial arts. And then once those 6 o'clock kids get out of that class, it turns over into a much more applicable gym atmosphere for adults. And and adults, we take basically all comers, every age range, shape, size. We have students that are in retirement, 65 years old, and we have kids who are 16 and maybe want to compete in the UFC someday, and we'll take them all, as long as they're safe and the doctor's cool with them, we'll take them.
That's amazing. Do you have like a favorite style that you prefer over everything else? Because I know you obviously do a lot of different
Yeah, I mean, that's a real good question. God, I feel like that's kind of like asking a parent to choose a favorite kid. It really depends on your mood, I would say. I had broken my hand in an MMA fight and been out of the fighting game for about 2 years. If you ask 2 years ago me, I would definitely say like a catch wrestling style, like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu with a Western wrestling emphasis. Since that handbrake, and I've been on rehab for that amount of time, I've been really getting into Western fencing styles, like European historical fencing. It's basically just like regular fencing, except for they use period accurate rapiers. So instead of like a fencing foil that is very bendy and super light, you're talking about like a 5-pound, 42-inch long rapier that you're trying to play stab tag with somebody with. And that's that's a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun with that of late. But see, now I'm training for a fight in January. I'm looking to punch my friend Blake Foster in the mouth in January, and so I've been starting to get back into that MMA cycle. I've been studying a lot of boxing footwork, a lot of smaller opponents, and trying to use my my martial arts talents in a different way. So, I mean, that was a very long way to say, it really just depends on my mood and what I'm training for and what I'm into,
Yeah.
What are you doing to prepare yourself for your fight with Blake? Because I know you're smaller than Blake, obviously, by a lot, and height-wise and everything.
So the fight with Blake Foster is going to be a real fun, interesting test of my martial arts acumen, and I'm really excited about it because I've won 5 MMA titles. 4 of those MMA titles have been at welterweight, which is 170, and one of them has been at 155, which is lightweight. So fighting Blake in January, we are going to be doing the light heavyweight division, which is 205 pounds. So Blake has to lose about 20 pounds, and I have to gain about 35.
Oh, wow.
So,
whoa.
Yeah. So what we're looking at is we're looking at a lot of boxing like systems, boxing. What word am I looking for? Strategies for people who are small for their weight class. So look at people like Mike Tyson, Lomachenko, stuff like that. These are people who are very active on their feet and very small for their weight class. So you'll probably be seeing a lot of combinations coming out of them, adding obviously kicks and grappling. Because, when you take somebody down and you hit them with a planet, everybody's the same size when they're laying on their back.
Wow. That's crazy.
True. So when you actually, so just to take one step back a little bit, when you first started doing MMA, how did that come about? Did you just wake up and just be like, I want to do this? Or was this always something you always wanted to do?
Kind of. And putting it that way makes it sound so trivial, so I probably wouldn't use those words. But actually, that's pretty much a good way to explain it. When I started getting into the MMA circuit, started training to do MMA, I was pretty much at an age where I was like, well, if you don't do it now, you're never going to be able to do it. It's not going to get any easier. So that's when I really just delved into it head first and made sure that it was a part of my life. Because, when I grew up, there wasn't, when I was really young, like Power Rangers young, there wasn't really a safe way for people to test out the martial arts moves, which moves worked, which moves didn't work. You would have to get in street fights. And not only is that illegal, but incredibly dangerous because, you don't know what anybody's carrying at any given time or how many friends they have. But, since MMA have become so popular, we live in an age where we can actually go to a place and somebody might even pay you to test out your martial arts. So I had a lot of fun kind of trimming the fat, so to speak, of martial arts moves that I thought worked or that I thought worked for me but don't. And you end up developing kind of like your own individual brand, individual style of martial art that's unique to you. And what I teach now is stuff, that I know works so that I can be confident that my kids can defend themselves. But at the same time, we throw in the spice of the fun stuff to keep them entertained and gravitated towards the martial arts.
Got it.
What are your methods to help your kids learn while having fun?
Well, when it comes to teaching kids, you want to make sure that they're getting the stuff that they come to martial arts for. Very few kids get into martial arts because they want to be UFC champion of the world. That's parents bring their kids to martial arts because they want their kids to be able to defend themselves. But kids come to martial arts because they like ninjas. They like Power Rangers. They like Three Ninjas. You know what I mean? So what the goal is to kind of give them what they need to become competent self-defense style martial artists, but also give them what they want. So what I've done is I've come up with a curriculum where we've thrown away, more traditional things like forms, and we've replaced them with kickboxing combinations that you would see in like UFC or Glory kickboxing, stuff like that. Combinations that I've used in the cage myself so that I know that they personally work. And giving kids a curriculum so that they know what is expected of them allows them to really work on the stuff that might not be as fun for them so that they can get to the stuff that is. So when I have a kid who is supposed to learn 4 combinations, you can say to them, hey, the quicker you learn your combinations, the quicker we can get through them in class, and the quicker we can get to learning how to use nunchucks or something like that. And you'd be surprised at how many kids can learn a 17-count combination very quickly if they just get to hold a samurai sword.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is very enticing, though, so I don't blame them.
Well, I guess you can say in a rudimentary sense, it's very carrot and stick. You know, you give them, you say, hey, you give me what I need, and then I give you what you need, and that's pretty much how life works.
Obviously, with the school, do you provide like nutrition facts, or like do you talk to the parents and their kids about what their meal should look like for them to have a good class or a good day?
You know, it's very hard to offer nutrition advice in any real sense when it comes to dealing with, 50 or 60 kids, mainly because my job is to be a martial arts coach and to teach somebody martial arts. Being a mentor on top of that is kind of like the burden you bear, but you don't want to necessarily give kids advice that they can't take into account. Mainly because, kids aren't making their own stuff. They're really not making their own nutrition. And it's not my job to step on the toes of the parents because, we have parents in different, they make different amounts of money. They have different living situations. They have different cultures. So I find that providing nutrition advice in the way that I would receive it for like fighting or, overall nutrition, tends to be more of a burden than anything else. If parents want that, I'm definitely more than happy to talk to them about it. But as far as just a carte blanche nutrition outline for the kids, I find that's going to do a little bit more harm than good, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, that's good. No, I've always wondered that, I've never been to a martial arts school, but I always genuinely wonder that. So thank you. What does a day for you look like when you're at the gym?
Well, being a martial arts teacher is a lot about making people realize that you're a good teacher, more so than actually teaching. So when I get into the gym in the morning, my job is to be the most exciting, or to make martial arts the most exciting thing in the world, not only for the kids at night, but the people out there on the internet. So that's why when you follow me, you get on like my various social medias, you get a lot of like cool weapons work, you get a lot of cool kickboxing stuff, you get a lot of historical knowledge on like where martial arts come from, what new weapons, different stuff like that. So a lot of my day is just putting out content that makes people interested in martial arts, interested enough to give me a call. And once they give me a call, then we can bring them in and make them actual students. So the majority of my day as a martial arts school owner is just interesting you guys out there in internet land that martial arts is cool and you want to do it. But like on a more personal sense, especially since we're training for a fight nowadays, wake up at about 7, go for a little jog with the pup, do a little bit of cardio, head to work, and do a little bit of martial arts business stuff, little content creation, little more training with like a boxing coach or whoever I have on the docket. Then my students come in. I'm done being a student. My students come in for about 4 to 5 hours. I'm teaching classes. And then afterwards, it's dinner, and then I'm exhausted. I'm an old man. I go to bed at like 10:30, so that I can wake up and do it all again. In a nutshell, the answer to your question is, though as glamorous as it looks, there's a huge routine involved in being a professional martial artist.
No, that's fair.
It's a lot of the same thing. I do have a question though. Now, with this routine that you have, it sounds like it is pretty much martial arts from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. Do you still act at all? Do you still audition, or is it just now nothing but martial arts for you?
Well, martial arts has always been my first love. And even when I married my wife, I always joked, because we got married in Utah, that she's in a polygamous relationship, or in the sense that like I'm also married to martial arts. So martial arts is what I do for a hobby. It's what I do for a living, and it's what I do. What I love. So I'm very fortunate to be able to do it for that. As far as acting goes, I'm definitely open to do auditions, to do parts and stuff like that. I find that most of my childhood consisted of going on audition after audition after audition on a daily basis. So I'm a bit tired of that audition process. I am happy to audition for projects that are interesting to me, but you know, as far as like going out for the next chewing gum commercial or you know,
right.
I'm not really. That doesn't strike me as a fun thing to do. I'm not that person anymore. So the answer is yes. I still act. Obviously, I act a fool every day on the internet. If you follow me on TikTok, I still act.
Oh, those are fun.
Yeah, they are. But as far as like actually auditioning very regularly, I've grown kind of wary of that.
Which is fair. Do you have a motto that you live by, if you have one?
You know, a good motto would be no guts, no glory, would be on the plaque that's over the entrance to my gym. You know, to get anything great, you have to attempt greatness. And I think that's what a lot of people fall short of when they're looking to reach their goals, whatever those goals might be, is they're so afraid of failing that they're not going to try to have something. And you got to go out there and you got to act like a fool in order to get what you want. And if you think you're going to look cool the entire time you do something, you're not. It's hard to look cool when you fall on your face, and it's going to happen a lot. So probably no guts, no glory.
That's a good one. I've never heard of that one.
Or I ain't so afraid of losing that I ain't going to try having something. I think that's a Firefly line. That was a good one.
So we're heading to lightning round.
All right.
If you could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be?
3 people, dead or alive. Okay. I would have dinner with Bruce Lee. I would have dinner with Nikolai Tesla. And I would have dinner with Morgan Spurlock. Bruce Lee for like the whole martial arts thing. Obviously, it would be fun to kind of chat about him. I have a feeling that Bruce Lee was a lot more low key and cool than a lot of people see him as, like sort of like a god or a saint. When it comes to Morgan Spurlock, I like his approach to propagandizing and sort of pseudo docudrama films, and I would like to pick his brain on how he decided to kind of jump into that and manipulate that that kind of medium for his purpose and to our entertainment. And Nikolai Tesla, I have a feeling, would be a very boring dinner because of how introverted I've read that he was, but it would be interested to get him started on that whole feud with Thomas Edison and see how angry I can get him and how much for him to reveal.
Oh my God. That's good. If you could have one superpower, now you can definitely make one up, what would it be?
Superpower. I've always loved Spider-Man growing up. I think that so it's like a tensile strength the way Spider-Man has. That's the kind of like lean muscle that's super strong and agile. I always thought would be really cool. I think that I can win a lot of MMA fights as long as I rein it back a lot. Which
hell yeah!
Saying it out loud, that's pretty much his origin story. Is that instead of being a superhero, he was a professional wrestler. So I think that I would probably learn the exact same rules and end up having to become a cape vigilante of some sort. Yeah, I'd say Spider-Man. Spider-Man. Still do it. I don't care.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you want to live? And bonus, your entire family, all your loved ones can come with you.
Can come with me. Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world.
Gosh, that'd be interesting. My wife and I recently went to Thailand, and I've been dreaming about Thailand since I was a young boy, especially being as into Muay Thai as I was. And when I got there, it's a beautiful place, but definitely a place you want to visit. I feel like a lot of places that shoot into my mind right now of living anywhere kind of feel a lot like that, where I'm in love with an aspect of it, but I'm not in love with it as a whole. Honestly, I live in Utah currently, and when I first got here, it was a little bit off kilter. It was a little bit weird, especially coming from Los Angeles. But now that I've lived here as long as I have, I mean, the vistas are beautiful. You can go anywhere and see beautiful snow or rock climbing. And it's not overpopulated, but it's not like a super small city. So you get like the metropolitan, but you also get rural. I'm pretty content with where I am. And bonus, if I got to bring all of my family from all around the world here, I mean, I just saved a whole bunch of money in Christmas trips.
Right? Okay, so with quarantine or self-isolation in effect, what can you tell us is your favorite TV series or movie that we should definitely be watching?
Oh, God. Much to the chagrin of my own wife, I am like a fiend for police procedurals and periodicals. I love a good murder mystery. And I have binged watched Bones on Hulu. It's like an 80-year-old woman. And I am not proud to say this, but I loved that show. It was so much fun. With that being said, though, we are having a lot of fun watching Handmaid's Tale. I think that you should definitely watch Handmaid's Tale. Especially when you're in self-isolation and quarantine, because of that kind of pseudo feeling of government telling you what to do and being oppressed and stuff like that. It's kind of a fun watch because you can see how those kind of government extremes how far that kind of government extreme can go. Another television show in that same vein is Man in the High Castle. That's on Amazon Prime. That's a good one. And if we're talking about Amazon Prime, why don't you go ahead and watch my movie for free? It's called The Sensei, and it's awesome.
We're definitely gonna go do that.
Good.
Because I have Amazon Prime, so that's exciting.
Perfect.
Are you a coffee or tea person?
Sweet.
Oh, I think I'm equally both. I like both of them cold. I'm not a hot beverage person. But I'm definitely both. I don't know if that's cheating.
No.
I like a good iced green tea. A lot of places won't serve it to you like that, and you have to be like, just bring me the hot tea and a glass of ice. Not that big of a deal. I just find that I don't like hot beverages. So you could give me ice, you could give me coffee, you could give me tea. As long as it's iced, I'm happy.
Okay, that's an interesting take. I've never. Yeah, I mean, it's true though. Ice green tea is delicious.
She knows. And even in the winter, I'll get iced coffee in the winter. You should see my Starbucks drive-through when they look at me all weird. I'm like, yes,
totally judging you. They're like, you sure?
I know. Like, are you having a stroke?
Like low key, I think they be judging you sometimes though. Like I've had that happen a couple times. I feel like they be judging.
Oh, of course.
Like, why are you getting that?
Calm down, Starbucks hipsters.
They probably
just want
are
something
judging.
cold in the winter. It's
Right.
science. If you drink something cold in the winter, your body raises its core temperature to heat it up, and you end up warmer than you would if you had a hot beverage. That's just science.
There you go. You guys didn't know that. Now you know.
Look at that.
Boom.
Bill Mike, the science ranger.
Now, this question might be the obvious answer, but I'm going to ask, are you a Marvel or DC person?
pretty simplistic to say that it's Marvel. I love DC. I feel like they have a lot of good characters, but you know, when I was a kid, I discovered Marvel Series 2 trading cards, and I got an allowance of like $1 a week, and we would go to the liquor store and purchase a packet of Marvel cards every week, and I got the entire collection and the collector's edition 3-ring binder. It's sitting in my martial arts office. It's the first thing that I really committed to and saw through as a young man. And so it's kind of like a symbol that's in my office right now, and it's always been a big part of my life and my love. So,
oh wow,
Marvel definitely.
Oh wow, that's amazing. If you could be one age forever, what age would you be? And now I'm talking like physically, you could be that age, but mentally, you could continue to develop and grow and expand.
Okay, that's a good question. So when, not to answer the question with the question, this is probably against lightning round rules.
No.
If I choose this age, I'm there forever, right?
Like your physical body would be there forever.
Okay, I would probably choose about 28 years old. I feel like I was at the peak, at my athletic peak at about 28 years old.
Okay.
You know, I think most people hit their athletic peak at about 21. I think I was too stupid at 21 to be athletically peaking. So only until I really buckled down and hit about 28. So I think 28-year-old me with 37-year-old me's mind would do a lot of damage.
My last question would be, what would you want your legacy to be?
Oh, man. You know, I want my legacy to be just people to see that I loved everybody that I could, and that I gave as much as I took. I think that, you know, when you're in your younger years, you're more apt to be a much more selfless or ish person, more selfish, and you're prone to act in ways that you regret in your later years. And I feel like sometimes your 30s and early 40s can be recompense for how you acted when you were younger. And I just hope that I do more good than evil, and leave this world a better place than I arrived in it in.
Wow.
Do you ever keep in contact with any of the fellow Kid Rangers?
Well, young Tommy was like one of my best friends on the set, and for a few years afterwards, we trained martial arts together. We'd see each other on auditions and stuff like that. But you know, it's one of the more common questions that I get, especially at Comic-Cons, is whether I keep in touch with like all the other Power Rangers or the kids from Three Ninjas or anything like that. And usually the best way to describe this is, you know, you probably don't keep in touch with the people you first worked with at your first job. And it's not because you didn't like it. It's just because, you know, when you're off doing different things, having different family dinners and doing different jobs, you just tend to lose touch. I would love to see them again. I do think that, you know, Power Morphicon or a Ranger Stop should definitely take the extra effort in bringing that entire cast together for a reunion. It would be really fun. But no, unfortunately, we don't talk on a very regular occasion.
Yeah, that's fair. Is there any future projects that we can look forward to coming from you?
Yeah, I'm working on a few different kind of reality-based show projects. One involving weapons. We recently did a show for Oxygen Network about a group of female fighters, and a weapons-based show for the History Channel. These are all like in production, so we really can't get into details about them, but they're a lot of fun, so you can definitely look out for those. As I mentioned, The Sensei is a great martial arts movie with a message to it. It's you can get it now streaming on Amazon Prime and Fandango. Obviously, I do a lot of fun work on social media, so make sure that you follow me there because you'll see a lot of cool historical weapons content as well as like cool tricks and generally me acting like an idiot, which, you know, is always fun.
Well, since you mentioned your social media, could you let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok as Big Bang Mike, Big Bang Mike _ on Twitter as well as Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at Big Bang Mike Rocks. And I think that's it. Oh, and I have a YouTube page, just Michael Olaskey for YouTube. Pretty much if you type my name into Google, you're going to find a whole smorgasbord of stuff. Feel free to follow. It's a good fun.
Nice. Well, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time out to come and join us and talk to us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, when it comes to self-isolation, I just think that that the best advice that I can give is, oddly, as an atheist, comes from the Bible, is that idle hands are the devil's playthings. If you sit too much and let the grass grow around you, it's going to eventually cover you up. So make sure that you're staying active, that you're consuming media that's not all negative, and you're having fun, whether it be, you know, via video chats or podcasts or just interacting with people. It's very easy to kind of hermit yourself and not really branch out there and talk to anybody. But we live in a digital era where communication is easier than ever before. So make sure that you're reaching out to people. And if you're wondering how somebody is, don't just wonder, give them a call, because you'd be surprised at how good it is to hear your own voice.
Well,
all right, take care.
Well, thank you for joining us today. My name is Brandon.
I am Lena.
I'm Will.
And we will talk to you next time.